Hello, Ziggy. Right, so you join us back next day. Very kindly, the little piglets have come over at night and they have replaced the lower arms, both sides, and fitted some second-hand GTI struts and springs. So that's all good. So that's pretty much everything on the front end replaced now. If you'll click up there somewhere, there's the guide for drop links, and I replaced the anti-roll bar as well with the GTI one. Now, a few things to do before we shove the clutch and the gearbox back on. This probably wants a bit of a clean-up, to be honest. It wouldn't hurt just to put a little bit of grease just on the joint here. You just have to pinch these, push it out, and there's a little ball on the back there. Put a little bit of grease on that, and the tiniest amount of grease on here and on here. This particularly the tiniest amount, just enough to help you slide it on to the clutch once it's on the box, because this spins and you don't want this flicking your grease all over your new clutch. And on here and on this is the old one, on the new release bearing, you really want a little bit, again, as you can see where the wear marks are, just to help noise and friction reduction as it's sliding up and down on there all day long. And then on the actual flywheel, if you look carefully, there's a lot of dust on there that needs cleaning off, and there's a lot of kind of dirt and friction material actually on the surface. So we use a little drill and one of these little pads and just give it a clean up, and then with some brake cleaner just wash it all down nicely, and then we'll look at fitting the new clutch. That's about it now. Yeah, oh, one other thing, if you're going to fit these rods, or you've removed the old ones and you think you can reuse the old ones, then a little point on these little balls, you want to put a little bit of grease. Wouldn't hurt at all. A little bit of lithium grease, well, it actually would really help, not necessarily hurt. And these little clips are a bit of a pig to do, so don't put them on the gearbox like I just was testing yesterday. You want to put them on the 3 joints up in there first, because you'll never get to those once it's got boxes on. And then once the box is on, you can get to these 3 joints here, and you can get these little clips in, which are quite important, really. Hold the ball on. So that's my top tip. If you're going to put these linkages on, or the old ones back on, make sure you fit them to the car first, and then the box second, because you can access this from above. Kind of get your hand in from above like that. So there we go, top tips. Let's get on with it. Ziggy's ready to play. Let's go. Right, what you just maybe saw on the time lapse there we go, is this little tool here, which slides through the clutch, the actual friction plate in the middle, through the middle of the pressure plate, push that in, there we go, and it basically holds the clutch central, the friction plate, while you start pinching up and putting the pressure with the pressure plate on. Because if you look down there, you see that all has to be lined up, otherwise you'll really struggle to get the gearbox on, and I mean struggle. It needs to be wonderfully aligned. So that's what that little piece of plastic does. You can just basically get a lever in there and move it around until you're happy, but one of these is really handy. Other ones are even more accurate than this, and bolt on and all sorts, but one of those is fine. They often come with clutch kits. I've got a few in the box just kicking around. I keep them a few different sizes. These are fine with Peugeots. So that's all I was doing there. So the clutch is aligned. Now what I'm going to do now is slowly do up those 6 bolts until they're tight. You don't need to put a massive amount of torque on those, but you do need to do them evenly so that the pressure is applied evenly to the clutch. You don't want to just wind one in and then wind another one in, and then do them opposites as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or however you want to do it, but opposites basically, until it's all nice and tight. Get in there. we are getting there, people. Righto, once you've got that clutch all bolted in, get your gearbox ready to go, slide it underneath the car, and it's good to get it on a jack, especially if, like me today here, I got no one to help me. So I'm just getting it in position. I'm trying to get the box at the same angle that the engine's at, because that input shaft in the gearbox needs to slide at the perfect angle where the clutch is. So that can take a little bit of jingling jangling to get that just right. Now when it does, the box, you just lift it up slightly, take the weight of it, and it will just slide through the clutch straight into basically where the flywheel is, where it sits. Now you should have a couple of bolts handy, and then you can just put a couple of bolts in temporarily. The reason I say temporarily, you want to put at least one at the top, one per side perhaps, and the reason when you do that, I'll explain in the next piece of video, is basically you want to make sure you've got gears and clutch before you go any further, just in case there is a problem. So that's the box in. It is a bit of a man-handling job. It's handy if you've got two people, one from underneath and one from above. But it's a simple case of lining it up, getting the height right, and then pushing in so that all those splines you saw earlier line up beautifully. Thanks, Iggy. I don't want to play now. Basically, yeah, it's also handy just to have a couple of those bolts. You probably might have seen that handy. So as soon as you think it's got it in position, you can wind those bolts in, which I did straight away. One at the top, and then I've just put one either side, one down there and one at the back from underneath. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the hydraulic clutch lined up and bolted on. If it was a cable, you could put a cable in. And I'm going to get the gear linkages sorted. Again, if they were cables, you could plug those on, to make sure that I can select each gear and that I can feel like I've got a good clutch. Now obviously it's difficult to tell if it's actually properly engaging without it running, but this will give you a good idea at this stage, that having put everything on, the engine runs, it doesn't feel right, you can obviously have a good idea of if you're getting things right at this stage. If the clutch, there's no clutch for instance, or you can't engage all the gears, then you need obviously to take the box off, have a look what you've done wrong. Hopefully everything will be right. So that's what we're going to do now, get those gear linkages on, which as you can see now, you've got plenty of access down there to get your hand down, and from the side here, without the, you probably can't see that very well, hang on. There you go, through there, look, to get to the gearbox side, but obviously not from the other side, so nice and easy to get to those. Put a bit of grease on there and get them in, and then we'll get that hydraulic clutch plugged in, bolted on, and we'll check to see if everything's okay. Bingo! Okay, so now it's basically a simple case of the bolts in that box and the bolts in that box, putting them all back in. Don't get too excited and put the gear oil in yet. Obviously you want the shafts in first, otherwise you put your gear oil in, it'll all puddle out. So basically we're going to run the rest of the bolts around the gearbox bell housing onto the block, and then we'll lever them up and put the mount on this side, and we can remove the jacks, and then we'll just start bolting and plugging everything back in, the plugs, don't forget flywheel sensor, your speedo sensor, bits and bobs like that, and then we'll get the drive shafts in, put the gear oil in, 1.5 to 2 litres, check on the specifications of your gearbox. Well, some gearboxes are loads, but generally 1.5 to 2 litres, and then you can put everything on top, because there's a little filler right in the top there. I'll show you. The filler is just here, 17mm. See that little white cap there? That's the breather. 17mm off there. You'll need a little funnel, and you put it in there, and that'll do just fine. Right then, so we're going to have a little just quick tidy up, just so that bits and bobs are out my way. I'm going to start bolting everything back in now. Right then, so everything's on, oil's in, nothing's leaking anywhere, so we are going to, it's still no wheels, and it's on the axle stand, so we're now going to jump in and start her up. Make sure there's no nasty noises and make sure that we can get drive. All gears, we have reverse. So here we go. I'm not sure if it's just the CV joint down here making a bit of a rumble. No, I don't think it is. So what I'm going to check is the old gear linkages, lengths versus the new. That might be a bit different. We'll check on that and come back. All that's left to remain to do is put a little cover on the inside there, a little plastic cover, put the wheels on, we'll lower it down, and then we'll go take it for a test drive. So I don't think there's much remaining to say really. The wheels will go on, I'll take it for test drive, all should be okay. And that's the guide for doing a clutch basically on a Peugeot 2-litre HDi. Same principles will apply, to be honest, to almost any front wheel drive vehicle, especially Peugeots, and especially the little Peugeots. Some others. The front brakes will be getting changed soon, so keep an eye out for a guide to upgrade your 206 brakes to GTI ones, and it'll be a good guide just for how to change your front brakes and pads. And we'll be putting a rear GTI beam on this soon as well. There is a link already to how to swap a rear beam, so I probably won't be showing you that, but we'll be putting that on there, and that'll balance out the suspension a little bit. And then in the spring, she'll be getting a little bit more power. Now she's ready, so there'll be a little guide about fitting an intercooler whilst keeping your air conditioning. Most get rid of that, we'll be keeping that. Basically keep tuned and stay tuned. Click like, follow my Facebook page for Piggy Power, like that. I get little updates and little pictures and stuff that you might find interesting if you like cars, which is likely because you're watching this video. Comment down below there if you need any more help or there's anything I missed that you think I need to tell you about, torque settings, etc. Otherwise, I've talked way too much and my back's killing me, so I'm going to go and have a brew. Good night. And you thought you got rid of me. Mention two things. I've replaced your suspension today, as you saw. Go get it tracked if you've done that as well. Because it will have changed the wheel alignment, and this video was sponsored by Micky Kelletts. See the link below, give them a call, MOTs, repairs, bodywork.